Hi friends, welcome back to Tech Job Hunt, and in the series of React.js tutorial we are going to learn uh, use effect hook in this lecture. This is our second video, and in the first we have discussed the use state hook and introduction about the React.js, and in this video we will learn about the use effect hook. What are the features, how we declare it, what are the core concept of the use effect, where we use this, and some interview related questions. So let's start with introduction. And before introduction, uh, first we will discuss why the use effect is going to do and what are the core features that are necessary to use effect. So when you call any third party service like API services, or you integrate the timers and trying to change the DOM elements or manipulating the DOM. So all these effects are done through the use effect hook. So it's a kind of uh, calling the third-party services in the component to extract the information or transfer the data between the services and the components. Okay, and so topic is we are going to discuss in the use effect are the introduction of the use effect and in-depth analysis of use effect hook with real-time Visual Studio code. So we will write the code on the Visual Studio to learn the basic structure of the use effect, where we use that hook and how it reflect on the user interface. And we will next discuss some miscellaneous concept uh, in the use effect hook, like uh, what are the cleanup functions, how we wrap use effect, or the dependencies in the effect, how does they affect the components. So all these things we will discuss, and the fourth point is some interview questions. So use effect is very important topic of the React.js hook, and so many things arises during the interview. So we'll cover up all those things, and then we have a clear idea and understanding about the use effect. So introduction of the use effect. So use effect is used to consume the third party services, basically to make the integration of the uh, services which are externally uh, used, or we used to call those things externally, which is beyond our component. So these services are not in the component, but we extract information uh, from the external side. So that's where use effect is used. So let's suppose API calling is the main feature that is done through the use effect. Okay, so here I have write simple definition or simple use case of the use effect. So in simple words, use effect allow us to run side effects. Okay, side effects means which are kind of uh, DOM changes occurs, or any events occurs, any kind of timers are there, third party API calling. So these are the side effects which influence our components. So to make the communication between both side effects and the component, we use the use effect. Okay, so here are the examples where use effect is um, basically used. API calls, timers, like set timeout function, set interval function, event listener, event listener uh, like button click, mouse hover, screen resize, or uh, kind of many others events like input field, checkbox field. So those are the events which are listened through the use effect, and we perform some operation which are necessary to do. Local storage. So local storage is our browser based storage which are stored on the browser cookie, like our JWT token or any other response that we want to store there. So we extract those information through the use effect. Like if you are calling your API and you need a token to pass to our API, then we will extract that information from the local storage to pass that in the API calls. Or we want to save something, like we want to save API response to in our cookie, any small response, then we can save through that effect. And DOM manipulation is like any restructuring or changing bit in the in the UI. Any structure is going to change, any DOM node is deleted or added, so that's where use effect is uh, used. So now we will see how use effect is written, what are the uh, what are the declaration method, how we write use effect in our uh, UI. So in the React.js, when we define the use effect, we have some basic structure to write that use effect. So I have written here the basic structure. So in the use effect, first one is a set state setup function. So this function do your functionality, like what you are going to do. Are you calling API? Are you logging something? Are you calculating something? So you can write your logic in the setup function. Here it is a cleanup function. It is very important in the use effect because this is used for preventing the memory leakage, and this is an important concept from the interview perspective, because if you have set up the function and you have consumed some services, or you have added some service, but you are not releasing the memory of that service, you are not disconnecting something, then the memory is going to used after, even after the unmounting of that component, the memory is still used through your server. So what will happen, it consumes the service and not released, so your server performance will decrease, your browser memory is going to load it high and your browser becomes slow because it is performing some action behind that. So cleanup function is very important when you consume this service and not clean that service. So memory is occupied through the application on your server. Okay, so this is a cleanup function that is used. So let's suppose we can take an example like uh, we have connected our local PC with some uh, you can say headphone with some kind of third party microphones, or you have connected with any socket or any kind of tool. So basic example is, let's suppose you have connected your local PC with the microphone. Okay, so what will happen if you do not disconnect that microphone? Then what happen? Your charging is going to decrease, your performance going to be decreased. It will occupy your driver, it will occupy uh, your processor for that particular service. So what happen, you are not releasing the processor to perform uh, that action, so you're not disconnecting that action from your PC. So that's where your resources are getting consumed. Same way, that is a cleanup function. If you are not writing cleanup function, then through the application your service is getting exhausted. Okay, so this is a cleanup function, and here it is a dependency. So dependency is a very important in the use effect, because dependency defines that your use effect set of function executed, how it is going to execute it, how many times it is getting executed. If your dependency is clear and with the business logic, then your use effect function will perform action in optimized way. And if you haven't uh, inserted the relevant dependency, then your use effect will run continuously, or perform the setup function continuously. So what happen, your resources are getting consumed. Let's suppose your API is calling, then your API will call every time, every render of that component. So what happen, your server is getting exhausted, your browser is getting exhausted, because it is calling multiple times. Every time something has been changed, some state is going to change. So this is a very important, dependency is very important, that you need to identify that what dependency we need to add in the use effect, so that that particular set of function is called. Okay, so dependency is optional. You can create the setup function without dependency, you can create with dependency, and you can create with the empty dependency. So what happens when you create with dependency? So let's suppose I have taken an example in a first way, that you have a count dependency. Let's suppose we are not passing array of dependency, we are passing only one dependency. Here there is a count. Okay, so what will happen when your count state is changed? Then use effect set a function, that is a console.log, is executed according to your state change. So every time count state is getting changed, then your console log will print. Okay, so let's suppose initially it is a 0, then what will happen, it will print count is 0. Again it is changed, then what happened, it will log count is 1. So that it will execute according to this. In the second way, if there is empty dependency, then what will happen, then this will execute only one time, that is count 0. Even after count will change, then the setup function will not execute it. Why? Because empty dependency render use effect, sorry, we can't use render, but we are saying that use effect perform the setup function only one time when your component mounted, and when component did update, then it will not perform this action. Okay, so count is 0. I will show you in the Visual Studio Code how this thing is happening when you passing the dependency and there is empty dependency, and when there is a without dependency, and this is a without dependency. So what will happen, every time every time, if let's suppose there is another state apart from the count, then also your use effect setup function will call. That means if there is another uh, set of another state variable, let's suppose some kind of flag is there. Okay, set flag, and it is easily the false. Okay, so what will happen, the flag is getting changed, then also your count is getting logged. So count is 0, and then again the set flag is getting changed, then also it will print, sorry I misspelled, count is 0. Okay, have you understand of these three ways of dependencies in the use effect? Okay, and yes, so we are on the Visual Studio Code, and here we have already set up our application, and in the previous lecture I have already told you about this application that we have already created, and this is a hook.js uh, file in which we were used the use state uh, hook, and we have understood all these changes, how the component is rendered, and how the state variable changes makes the component rendering. Okay, so on the same component we will try to learn the use effect. Okay, so I am just deleting this child component because it is not required, and this is our hook, and this is the hook page component. So this is our parent component. In this parent component we will write the use effect hook to understand the functionality, to understand how it is worked in within the component. Okay, and I am deleting this line so that you can clearly understand what will happen. Okay, so I am writing use effect hook structure. I've already told you how the use effect structure is written. So there is a setup function and there is a dependency. Okay, so I am writing the callback function, and yeah, so I am using, haven't installed the Copilot Studio, so that's why the auto suggestion is enabled, but no problem. I will clearly state you about all the code, all the lines, so that you can understand clearly. Okay, so I have written the use effect structure. So I am commenting something to understand that this is a set of function. Okay, and here you will declare dependency. Okay, dependency array. So we can pass the array of dependencies, that multiple, maybe you need a combination of the state variable, so that that set of function is getting executed according to that. So use effect provides us this functionality that you can pass the list of dependencies. Okay, so first thing we are doing, that we are making use effect without any dependency. The first way we are doing that, we are not creating any dependencies. So how does use effect will work? Okay, and I am creating second flag, like you got one set second state variable. Okay, and firstly it is true. Okay, and this is our on click set count. So I am creating a next button. Okay, so this is a break, and this is a flag, and this is a button of the set flag. So no problem, it is Copilot has make auto completed the whole line that I want to write, but I can tell you each line that this peep tag is used to print the count, and there is a no kind of rocket science in this line. You can see that this is a button, and on click the setter function is called, so it makes the count plus 1. That means the previous state of the count is getting increased by 1. Okay, and this is a flag variable. This is a flag variable that will print uh, the flag that it is true or false. So it will convert true and false into the string, so it will show on the UI about the true and false. Okay, and there is a button. So this is a event I am trying to invoke, that on the button click, what will do, it is creating the negation of the flag. That means it will make that flag uh, toggling the flag. Actually it will toggle the flag. That means there's a switch. You have seen the switch uh, of the light, so on and off, on and off. So you will click the button, then there will, if it is off then it will on, but it is on then it will be off. So that will make the toggle of that flame. Okay, so I have created a two button, and there is a two state variable, the count and the flag. So I am writing one thing, I am writing that console.log that setup function executed. So what will happen, what I have already told you, that without dependency, if you're not passing dependency, then every time the component is getting rendered, your setup function will be called because you have not passed any dependency. So on the count change, it builds a lock setup function executed on your console page, and even the flag is state getting changed, then also the setup function executed will called. And I can write here the count and flag. Okay, so here count will be shown or flag will be shown, so that you can clearly understand that flag and count is getting changed on the console page. So I am running this project, and on the UI page we will see. Okay, so run. Yeah, now we are on the UI page, and here you can see that navbar item and the home page. So our hook page is there, and you can see that uh, the parent component. And one second, I have not saved actually that file, so that's why it is not showing our. Okay, so this is getting some kind of error. Module has not exported. Okay, so there is some error. Once again, I am just trying to. Okay, so this is export default function is not there, so that's why it is getting error. So your component should be exported so that you can use it on the browser page effectively. Okay, now it's clearly working, and you can see that this is a hook page content, and this is a button for the increment of the count, and this is a toggle flag. So initially count is 0 and your flag is true. So you can see here on the console page that your setup function executed. Okay, so on the component mounting, the setup function executed, and you can see that the count is 0 and flag is true. Okay, so what will happen if I am toggling the flag? I have clicked. Okay, so you can see here the setup function. Actually I have clicked multiple times, so that's why it is showing this. So you can see that setup function executed, count is 0, flag is false. Okay, and again I have clicked, so that's why it is showing flag is true. One thing I can do, I can clear it, and I am making refresh of that page so that you can see. Okay, so 2 times is printing, that's not a big thing. You can on the debug mode, it is in strict mode, so that's why it makes the it's kind of make sure that your components should be pure function, so that's why it is printing 2 times. So no issue, on the production it will uh, execute only 1 times. So setup function executor, initially your count is 0 and flag is true. So what will happen, your toggle flag is clicked, so you can see here setup function executed again. So your flag was true, but now your flag is false, and the use effect had run this setup function, count is still 0. So when you increment that count, your setup function again executed and count is 1, flag is false. So you can see that dependency is not there in the use effect, but your state component, your state variable is getting changed and your component is getting re-rendering. So that's why use effect is also getting executed. Okay, so I will show you when you pass the dependency and you will change that state variable, then it will uh, execute that setup function according to that particular dependency. If that dependency is not getting changed, your setup function will not execute. Okay, so we are moving to our Visual Studio Code and try the second day. So now we are on the Visual Studio Code page, and here we have without dependency use effect, and now I am passing second way of use effect. Sorry, multiple times this button has been clicked, so that's why it is creating this. Okay, sorry, doing some wrong. Here should be dependency. So second thing, I am passing the empty dependency. Then what will happen? If I'm passing the empty dependency, then what will happen? So the setup function will execute only one time when your parent component getting rendered. Okay, so it will only print setup function executed, count will be the 0, flag is true. Again your state variable is getting changed, then it will not affect that setup function. So we can see on the browser page that how the empty dependency is getting worked. Okay, so we are moving to the browser. Okay, so I've saved. Now we are on the browser uh, page, and now we will see that how the uh, empty dependency use effect work. So I'm refreshing this page so that the console logs getting clear and you can see that change. Okay, so initially the component mounted and rendered, so the setup function executed and your count is 0, flag is true. So I am passing empty dependency, so your state variable if change, then it will not affect your setup function. Okay, so I am incrementing 1 2 3, toggle flag false, true, toggle face false, true, toggle face. So you are seeing that your increment count making the count state changed, and your toggle flag making the flag state is getting changed every time. But you are not seeing that your setup function is executing again and again. So it will execute only one time. That means if you are passing the empty dependency, then your setup function will only execute when your component is getting mounted, and it will not again executed if your state component is getting changed or re-rendered. Okay, now we are using the third way, passing any dependency. Then we will see that how the use effect is work. So we are going to Visual Studio Code again. Now we are on the Visual Studio Code page, and here we will pass the dependency and we will see that how the use effect is getting changes. Okay, so now here I am passing dependency count. So what will happen when you pass that dependency? It will reference its previous value and its current value. So if the state of that dependency is getting changed, then your setup function will execute according to this. Okay, so when the count will be changed, then your setup function will execute. So when your another state variable and the flag is getting changed, then your use effect will not use effect setup function will not execute again. So it's dependent on the count state. So now we will see what will look on the UI page. So we will moving to UI page. We have saved the page. Okay, so now we are on the UI page and I am just refreshing that. uh, yeah, press the hit page. Okay, so first time it is executed and your count is 0, flag is true. Okay, so I have tell you that the count dependency is passed in the use effect. So when the count state is getting changed, then your setup function will execute. So it depend on the count. So there is a two state variable, that is a flag and count. So when the flag is getting changed, then your setup function will not execute. But when your count state is getting changed, then it will execute setup function. So I am incrementing your count with 1 and we can see here that setup function executed, count is 1, flag is still true. And now we are clicking the toggle flag and make the flag state change. Then we will see that what will happen. So I am toggling flag, it is false, but it hasn't logged or executed setup function. You can clearly see again increment is count is getting 1, then you can see that setup function executed and now count is 2 and flag is false. So it is printing the current of state value of both state variables. But when you are toggling flag, it does not affect your setup function. Okay, so now you have a clear idea how the dependency changing uh, is work in the use effect hook. Okay, so now we will move to some another concepts like cleanup function. So now the last thing we are going to learn in this video, that is a cleanup function. Okay, I have already given idea about the cleanup function. This is a return function when your component unmount. So before unmount, this function is called. Okay, I will show you how the component uh, mounted and then your uh, component is rendered, and when the component unmount, that means it's getting its previous state is getting uh, eliminated and the next re-rendering is happen. So that's called the component unmounting. Okay, so uh, I am writing a return cleanup function. Okay, so return, I'm writing callback function, you can write any. Okay, so this is a cleanup function executed. This is a cleanup function. Okay, I have written. So what happens when your component unmount? So before component unmount, your return function will execute. Okay, your cleanup function will execute. That's also called the cleanup function. So in this we clean the state, or we clean the any kind of connection, we clean any kind of timers so that your memory is not getting uh, leaked, or your memory is uh, your garbage collection, you can say that your garbage collection is getting uh, executed. It release all those memories. So that's why the cleanup function is used. So I have written it, and now we will go to the UI page. Yeah, now it's a UI page and we will see here. I am just cleaning, and So your hook component is rendered, and you can see here your setup function is executed and your cleanup function is also executed. So the first time it is getting rendered, so your cleanup function is also executed, because your first time rendering is also kind of mounting the component, but it is also initially it is unmounting that component. You can see that mounting, and before mounting there is an unmount function, and when you unmount function, before unmounting of the component, your cleanup function is getting executed. So here count is 0 and flag is true. Okay, so it is the first time rendering of the setup function and the cleanup function. So I am increasing the count, and you can see here in the setup function the count is 1, flag is true, but your cleanup function is count 0 and flag is true. Why? Because before the unmount, the cleanup function is getting executed. So before the unmounting of your previous component, the count stage has a 0 value. So when your count value is getting increased, your your previous component is getting re-rendered, and now your count is getting 1. So now when we increase count by 1, then your this state value component will call that cleanup function, and it will print now the cleanup function executed counted 1, and again your component will mount, and again your component will render, then render of setup function make the count variable increase to the 1. So again when re-rendering is happen, your cleanup function will execute, and now your cleanup function is executed, count is 1 before the unmounting, and your setup function is now count 2. So you can see that the cleanup function is executed when your component is getting unmounted, and before unmounting the cleanup function called, and what your stage or connection or all those things are there, you can disconnect or dispose that services, and again your component render. Okay, so now you have a clear idea about the dependency, how the use effect is getting worked when dependency is passed, what is the cleanup function are there, and that's all for the use effect. If any advanced topic will be there in the use effect, then I will make a new video, and I am attaching the PDF of the question and answer in the interview. So with the link you can download that a PDF for your reference. Thank you so much. Bye bye.